The most important thing is to stay focused, believe in yourself, and keep pushing forward, no matter what challenges come your way.
The world is going to change dramatically because of China's rise. And the United States is not ready for that.
I think what you said was really interesting, and it made me consider a new perspective.
What is the right path to go from, like the 0 to 1 stage? Like, what should I actually do?
So for the pre-workout, I usually just take 1 scoop.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I was wondering about the dosage.
The gray morning sky hung low over the quiet countryside, a soft drizzle clinging to the fields. Inside a modest farmhouse, CEO Hung moved quietly through the kitchen, the rich aroma of simmering chicken soup filling the air. His hands moved with purpose as he prepared a nourishing meal for Tieu Ca, the fragile woman resting in the next room. She had given birth prematurely, and the weight of the world seemed to press on her small shoulders. Hung glanced toward the bedroom door, worry flickering in his dark eyes. He set the soup aside and peeked in on Tieu Ca. She stirred beneath the blankets, her face pale but peaceful in sleep. Bobby Han slept soundly beside her, his small chest rising and falling with each breath. Hung felt a warmth spread through him, tempered by determination. "She's been through enough," he murmured to himself. "I'll take care of them." When Tieu Ca awoke, she found the table laid with steaming porridge, tender chicken, and fresh rice. Hung greeted her with a gentle smile. "Eat, regain your strength," he said softly. "The doctor wants you strong before we visit the hospital again in a few days." His voice was steady, but his heart thudded with unspoken worries. The cost of the incubator, the dangers that still lingered outside these walls. Tieu Ca looked at him, her eyes glistening. "You're too kind," she whispered. "You cook for me and Han, and you only eat instant noodles. I don't want to be a burden." Hung reached across the table, brushing her fingers lightly. "You're not a burden. You and the babies are my family now." Later that morning, Hung rode to the workshop, his mind shifting to business. The rain had slowed the wood shipments, and prices were still painfully high. He instructed his manager, Tuan, to send planks to Tieu Ca's house for a new roof over her shed. He even approved a promotion for Kayet, a hard-working employee, knowing the company needed strength more than ever. Yet, even as he handled logistics, a quiet unease gnawed at him. Back at the farmhouse, the peaceful routine shattered. Tieu Ca's ex-husband arrived unannounced, his boots muddy, his eyes sharp with resentment and hunger. He stepped into the yard, calling her name as if it still belonged to him. When she appeared, her face drained of color. His gaze dropped to her stomach, then hardened. "Where's my baby?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Tieu Ca held her ground, though her hands trembled. "You lost the right to ask me that," she replied. "You abandoned us. You disappeared after taking money from Hung's workshop. You don't get to walk back into our lives now." The ex-husband's lips curled into a sneer. "That's my blood," he snapped. "One of those children is mine, and I'll take what's mine. I have money now. I can provide for them, better than you or Hung ever could." His words sliced through the air like a knife, but Tieu Ca didn't flinch. "You will not touch my children," she said, her voice shaking, but firm. "We have no ties left. Go." She stepped back, clutching the doorframe for support, her heart pounding. But the man took a step closer, his eyes flashing with a dangerous glint. Suddenly, the rumble of a motorbike echoed up the path. Hung's return. He saw the scene instantly. The ex-husband looming over Tieu Ca, her face pale with fear. Hung's expression hardened, and he approached with deliberate steps. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice calm but edged with steel. The ex-husband turned, feigning confidence. "Just came to see my child," he said. "One of them should come with me." Hung's gaze was unwavering. "You have no right," he said flatly. "You abandoned them. You stole from the workshop. Leave before you regret staying." For a moment, the ex-husband hesitated, measuring the resolve in Hung's eyes. The rain pattered softly on the roof, the silence between them charged with unspoken threats. Finally, with a muttered curse, he turned and stalked off down the muddy path, his figure swallowed by the mist. Hung turned to Tieu Ca, his voice softening. "He won't come back," he promised, though in his heart, he knew the danger wasn't gone. She collapsed into his arms, her tears soaking his shirt. He held her tightly, feeling the fragility of her body against his chest, and silently vowed to protect her and the children, no matter the cost. Inside, the farmhouse felt smaller now, its walls closing in under the weight of what had just happened. But as Hung guided Tieu Ca back to her bed, the flickering lamp cast a warm glow over the room. It wasn't just a place of fear. It was also a place of safety, of promises, and of the unyielding hope that love could shield them from the storms gathering outside. Outside, the clouds thickened once more, the distant rumble of thunder warning that this was only the beginning. Hung glanced toward the horizon, jaw set. Whatever battles lay ahead, with the ex-husband, with money, with fate itself, he would face them all. For Tieu Ca, for the children, for the fragile future they were building together. The morning after the confrontation broke with a dull gray light. Rain lingered on the leaves, dripping steadily as if the world itself was reluctant to move on. Inside the farmhouse, Hung stirred a pot of soup on the stove, his movements deliberate. He glanced at the sleeping form of Tieu Ca, the faint rise and fall of her chest reassuring him for a brief moment. But his mind was already racing ahead. How long before the ex-husband came back? At the workshop, Hung arrived earlier than usual. The workers were gathered under the tin awning, whispering about the previous night's events. Tuan approached him nervously, holding a ledger. "The shipments are still delayed," he said. "And word is spreading. People are wondering if the trouble with Tieu Ca's ex will spill over here." Hung's jaw tightened. "Our work stays our work. Make sure everyone knows that." He walked the length of the workshop, checking the stacks of timber, mentally noting every missing piece, even as he assessed the practical problems. Wood quality, shipment schedules. His mind drifted back to Tieu Ca. The image of her trembling hands and tear-streaked face haunted him. He could still hear her voice saying, "We have no ties left." Meanwhile, back at the farmhouse, Tieu Ca woke to the sound of rain pattering on the window. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders and stared at the empty doorway, feeling both comforted and lonely in Hung's absence. She remembered the ex-husband's glare, the venom in his words. Her heart clenched at the thought of him returning. Hung sent a message to Kayet, his most trusted worker. "Tell everyone, no one lets that man near Tieu Ca's house. If he comes, warn me immediately." Kayet replied quickly, "Understood, boss. We'll keep watch." Hung pocketed his phone and exhaled. The company, the workshop, the farm, all of it could be rebuilt. But Tieu Ca's fragile sense of safety could not be so easily restored. By noon, Hung stopped by a supplier's office, discussing the idea of switching to 1.3-meter planks for an overseas order. Business talk grounded him, but even as he negotiated prices, he felt the weight of his double life. CEO by day, protector by necessity. The supplier commented on his distracted demeanor, but Hung brushed it off with a polite smile. Back at the farmhouse, Tieu Ca busied herself with small chores to keep her mind occupied. She folded baby clothes, straightened the small table, and checked on the pot simmering on the stove. But every creak of the wooden floorboards made her flinch. She found herself glancing out of the window repeatedly, scanning the road for any sign of trouble. In the late afternoon, Hung returned, bringing fresh vegetables and a small bag of rice. He set them on the table and knelt beside her chair. "You're safe here," he said softly. "I've made sure of it." She nodded, but her eyes betrayed her lingering fear. Hung took her hand, his calloused fingers warm against her chilled skin. They shared a quiet dinner, the soft clinking of spoons on ceramic bowls the only sound between them. Hung spoke occasionally about work, how Kiet was proving himself, how shipments might finally stabilize. But his gaze kept drifting to her, measuring every flicker of unease in her expression. After dinner, Tieu Ca stepped outside to breathe the cool evening air. She watched the sun sink low, painting the clouds in hues of rose and amber. Hung joined her, standing silently for a moment before saying, "Sunsets remind me that endings can be beautiful too, even the hard ones." She glanced at him, her lips parting in surprise at the tenderness in his words. The distant sound of a motorbike echoed faintly through the hills, making her stiffen. Hung noticed instantly, his body tensing, but the sound faded, and the moment passed. Still, a silent understanding settled between them. The danger was not gone. As night fell, Hung checked the locks twice, then positioned a lantern near the door. He moved quietly through the small house, his eyes scanning every shadow. Tieu Ca watched him from the bedroom doorway, her heart twisting at the sight. She wanted to tell him how much his protection meant, but the words caught in her throat. Later, as the crickets sang outside, Hung sat at the kitchen table, staring at the flickering flame of a candle. He thought of the promises he'd made, to protect, to provide, to build a future even when the odds felt impossible. Somewhere out there, Tieu Ca's ex-husband was plotting, perhaps gathering the courage to return. Hung's jaw set with determination. In the stillness of the farmhouse, Tieu Ca drifted to sleep, the sound of Hung's steady footsteps a lullaby that soothed her fears. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the unspoken truth. Their fight was far from over. But within those walls, two fragile hearts held fast to a fragile hope. That together, they could weather any storm. The third morning dawned with a heavy fog blanketing the fields, muting the colors of the world into shades of gray. Hung stood on the porch, the weight of sleepless nights evident in the dark circles beneath his eyes. He sipped lukewarm tea, scanning the dirt road that wound toward the farmhouse. The silence of the valley felt deceptive, too calm, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Inside, Tieu Ca folded the twins' tiny clothes with delicate hands. The babies slept nearby, their small breaths steady and untroubled, unaware of the storm hovering just beyond their walls. She paused once, holding up a tiny shirt, her chest tightening at the thought of anyone daring to tear their fragile family apart. Hung returned from the workshop that afternoon with a stack of timber and fresh supplies. His workers, now briefed, watched the road in shifts, ready to alert him if the ex-husband appeared. The men respected Hung's quiet authority. He wasn't just a boss, but a protector. Still, Hung knew that preparation didn't erase the danger. By mid-afternoon, Tieu Ca ventured into the yard to hang laundry. The air smelled faintly of rain, and the hills loomed dark against the horizon. As she pinned a small blanket to the line, the distant growl of a motorbike sent a jolt through her chest. Her hands froze mid-air, and for a heartbeat, the world felt suspended. The ex-husband's figure emerged through the fog, his posture confident, almost taunting. He cut the engine and stepped off the bike, his boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. "I'm here for my child," he announced, his voice carrying a practiced calm that only sharpened its menace. Hung stepped out from the workshop's side path, his expression unreadable. He positioned himself between the man and the farmhouse, "You need to leave," Hung said evenly, though every muscle in his body was taut. "You have no claim here." The ex-husband smirked, taking a slow step forward. "I have money now," he said. "I can give them a better life than you ever could." Tieu Ca appeared in the doorway, her face pale but resolute. "Money doesn't make a father," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You had your chance. You left. You stole. You don't get to come back and rewrite history." Her words hung in the damp air, sharp and unyielding. The man's eyes flickered with anger, but Hung's calm presence anchored the moment. "If you care for them," Hung said quietly, "prove it by walking away. Don't cause them more pain. Don't make their first memories of you a threat." The ex-husband hesitated, his bravado faltering against the steady weight of Hung's gaze. Behind Hung, the faint cooing of a baby drifted from inside the house, a soft reminder of the lives at stake. The sound pierced the tension like a fragile bell. Tieu Ca's heart clenched as she stepped closer to Hung, her hand brushing his sleeve in silent solidarity. The ex-husband's shoulders sagged slightly. He glanced at the farmhouse one last time, something unspoken flickering in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or a memory of what he had thrown away. Without another word, he turned, mounted his bike, and disappeared into the fog, the growl of the engine fading into the distance. For a long moment, the yard remained silent, the only sound the gentle flap of laundry in the breeze. Hung exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his body in a long, measured breath. He turned to Tieu Ca, brushing a tear from her cheek. "It's over," he whispered, though he knew it was only partially true. She clung to him, her head against his chest, the steady beat of his heart grounding her. "Thank you," she murmured. "Oh, for staying, for protecting us." Hung tightened his arms around her. "This isn't just about protection," he said. "It's about building something together, a future where no one can threaten what we hold dear." That evening, as the sun broke through the clouds and bathed the valley in gold, Hung lit a small fire outside. He cooked a simple meal, grilled fish and rice, and they ate together under the open sky. The babies stirred and fussed, their small cries a gentle melody that softened the edges of the day. As night fell, Hung stood at the doorway, watching the stars blink awake. Tieu Ca joined him, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. They said little, but the quiet between them was no longer heavy with fear. It was a quiet of shared strength. The future was uncertain, but their hearts felt steadier, tethered together by resilience and love. And as the crickets sang and the breeze whispered through the trees, Hung made a silent vow under the starlit sky. No matter the storms that came, he would guard this fragile happiness. For Tieu Ca, for the twins, for the life they were daring to build in the shadow of past mistakes, and for the promise of brighter mornings yet to come.